Say what you will about the chaos around D&D's OGL fiasco earlier this year. They've got some talented people working on their staff. So, regardless of your feelings about Wizards of the Coast as a company, this is what I always keep coming back to. There are passionate people working on Dungeons and Dragons. Doesn't matter the corporate politics, and there have been passionate people working on D&D and their fantasy worlds for decades, and that's not something that's going to stop anytime soon, even if there may have been a corporate misstep. So this piece of art is the header for a post over on Polygon.com talking about D&D's revised core rulebooks and how it's going to help grow better players and more dungeon masters. Now, I haven't looked through the actual any sort of online previews of what's coming down the road for the next player's handbook, but this article dives into some really core components that I think are going to make the next player's handbook one of the biggest player's handbooks that's ever been sold. And the reason is because it sounds to me from this article that they're getting back to a lot of the basics, which means rules before character creation and a heavy focus on artwork, which is always fun. He's gonna be 8, I think, on Saturday. My nephew, my brother got him the children's editions of Dungeons and Dragons like 2 winters ago, like 2 Christmases ago. Those 4 books in a slipcase. And one of the things that he has been obsessed with as a young child is the artwork from these books. And if you look at things like this, one of the things Wizards of the Coast has done spectacularly is have extremely, extremely good fantasy art in all of their Player's Handbook, Dungeon Guides, Monster Manuals. I mean, they are the cream of the crop when it comes to art. Now, I realize art is subjective, and some people will say, like, oh, we love Pathfinder more. Pathfinder's great art. I think it's equally good. All these companies have good artworks, but I think for me, you know, Wizards of the Coast is always focused on really cool artwork. So there's a lot more going on here, though. I'd like to kind of head into this article and talk about it a little bit more from what they're reporting on. Um, it says, they've worked on a lot of other stuff. Obviously, there's been some hiccups along the way with 5th edition stuff. Not everyone was happy with everything, but they've all come out and been revised and so on and so forth. But there are going to be revisions and new versions of the original 3 core rulebooks coming out next year. So you got the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master Guide, and the Monster Manual. Wizards said that it plans to endeavor to make these books richer or more usable than ever, all while retaining continuity and compatibility with every 5th edition product that has come before. So this is just an extension of that 5th edition um, product line. Chris Perkins said, for so many people, those books are the introductory experience they had to the game. Those books are denser than some of our later books. The monsters aren't as easy or as fun to play as some of our recent books, and finding things is not as easy, so making sure that our gateway to the game is as strong, as beautiful, and as accessible as possible is important to the longevity of the game and just for people's overall enjoyment. So here's some of the things to expect inside the upcoming 2024 edition of the core rulebooks. First and foremost, it says the player's handbook is going to have a lot more pages. It says D&D's 5th edition came in at 320 pages. But the updated version likely won't have as many words because they're working hard to streamline its language and provide more art to players than ever before, including not only the 12 core classes, and it says here, I gotta find it where it's scrolled down. Um, 48 subclasses, so 12 core classes, 48 subclasses. This is one of the things I really appreciated here, is the fact that they have moved character creation behind the rules. So when you get into the player's handbook in 2024, you're going to be reading about the rules first. So they're going to teach you how to play the game before they actually invite you to roll up your first character, which was one of the things I thought that they had made a mistake on with the last version was, you don't put character creation at the very beginning. You need to learn how to play the game first. Like, what do all these rules mean? And if you go back to some of the original ones, there was always an explanation there. But here's the thing that was most impressive to me. It says when you do make your first character, there's going to be 144 character background options to choose from in the Player's Handbook 2024. It says here, whether you started life as a soldier skull will also be more important than it was in 2014, and that's because the new Player's Handbook offloads important features like ability score improvements, first level feats, and more from your character's biological roots to their cultural and socioeconomic roots, similar to what was proposed as an optional rule in Tasha's Cauldron of Anything. This is also essentially what Pillars of Eternity has done. when you do character creation in those games, you're only given a limited amount of points to put into things. But beyond that, your race and your culture, your class, your background, all of those things add to your current stats so that by the time you finish it, because in that game, at the very least, the only stats you get are the ones you start off with. There are no stat improvements over the course of leveling in Pillars of Eternity. Now, I don't know if they're doing that similarly here, but at least it sounds like they're doing more than just ability scores now in terms of how you can flesh your character out. They're going to put a lot of that into your backgrounds now, which is really cool. They said they now have a character origins chapter, which is going to include guidance on alignment and languages, says Jeremy Crawford. The focus is on species, formerly called race, and backgrounds. How we're framing it, and this is really building on the work we did in Tasha's Call to Anything, is taking those two components of the character and combining them to create a glimpse of who their character was before they became an adventurer. There's also going to be rules to create backgrounds of your own. So they're basically trying to create a greater tool set here for people to use. Ability scores are locked in much later in the character creation process. You'll still be able to use standard rand points by, but it says here going forward, the classes themselves will recommend what ability scores to take. It's designed to get people playing faster. This again goes back to Pillars of Eternity, um, um, where you're given like two or three preferred abilities. They like prompt you. These are really good for the ranger. This is really good for the rogue. This is really good for this caster or that caster, the chanter, the bard, and all these things. Really cool. Then we get to the Dungeon Master Guide, and it says here. Um, It says back to the 2 minutes. So I'm skim reading here, and I got a cat up on the desk. I'm gonna have to go look at. Hey everyone, Renfail here with the commercial part of the video where I say, hey, if you like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. And thanks to all of our supporters are here on YouTube and over on Patreon, our highest members, our guild champions, Crazy's Relative, Remy D here on YouTube. And don't forget, if you want to support, it's really easy. You can do the memberships below, the Adventurers Guild, 3 different tiers. There's also the super thanks on any uploaded video or YouTube short that you find. There's also, of course, the super chats and stickers that you could do on any live stream or premiere, and the Patreon page if you want to dive into the fantasy world that I have with my brother and my wife, which is a tabletop game, a point-and-click adventure game, and a fantasy book series. All are great ways to keep this channel going and me going full-time. Thanks again for those of you who support. Let's get back to the video that you're watching now. All right, so moving on to the Dungeon Master's Guide. They said that, they're circling back to 8 years of conversations later with a number of things they want to do the Dungeon Master's Guide that they would have liked to have done years ago. So there's going to be a new revised section on creating your own homebrew with a sample campaign setting, which is this. And I like the fact that they specify that this is for new DMs. It's not for experienced DMs like myself who already know how to do world building and everything else. But this is specifically designed for people who are like, oh, I've been a player for 4, 5, 6 years. I want to try my hand at DMing. It's great to have someone to guide you in a nicely laid out, here's how to do it formulate. Guides are great. Everybody loves guides. There's nothing wrong with a guide. Um, they say here that it's not about, he says, I don't want to use the word stripped down, but let's say it's very condensed, but it's a complete setting. You can take this campaign skeleton and add some flesh to it and kind of build it up from there. So it's a template that people can use. So they get a poster map that you can use with this campaign setting. They give you the hooks that you might want to use to inform your decisions, thinking about which conflicts are going to be important to the game and the story and so on and so forth. They said they're going to include a lot of things overlooked in 2014. So, for example, what's the purpose of a Dungeon Master screen and how do you use it? And these sort of information tidbits. And I think the reason they want to do that is because they've seen that all these YouTubers are out there creating this type of advice and it goes over very well with people because, again, people love guides. Everyone wants a good guide. So, by them providing it, they're just doing what people were already doing for them. Oh, he even said here, people want to know, how do I become like Matt Mercer and other now famous DMs? How do I make sure my game is actually delivering on player expectations? So we can front load all that information so that when we get to the middle of the book, DMs are prepared to talk about some other conversations, not the issues of starting up the game and addressing matters at the game table. But then there's the creative part of DMing. And finally, we have the monster manual. It says here, this is a book rarely seen by the average D&D player. It's true. This one, it says, is probably going to have the most content out of the upcoming three books. It's going to have more than 500 monsters. And it says for the first time in franchise history, every single one of those monsters is getting its own original piece of artwork. Do you want to know why they're doing that, by the way, everybody? That's because they are preparing to take advantage of NFTs and also selling of the digital versions of these so that you can get a token and you can buy the rights to use this image from this monster on D&D Beyond. So you're going to be able to pay for the rights. This is why they're doing every single piece of every single creature is going to have artwork. That's one of the reasons they're doing that, because this is their long-term monetization. One of the other reasons they're putting so much new artwork into the new book as well. NFTs, it's coming down the pipeline, I'm telling you. Says the biggest surprise is how many high level monsters are included, each one fully capable of giving a level 20 group of heroes a run for their money. We wanted to make sure there were more high end stuff here. Um, said 2024 is going to have a lot more stuff, including an ooze that can wipe out an entire town just by rolling over it. Says also they're trying to put an end to the edition wars. Fifth edition isn't going away, they say. Um, Current 5th edition rule set was crafted with input from hundreds of thousands of players during a multi-year playtest that preceded the 2014 launch. And they're trying to let people know again that don't just forget about what we said about D&D 1. Just forget about 6th edition. No, 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 no. This is what we're doing. We're just extending 5th edition. Trust us. All right, so I've said all that to say this. Obviously I can poke fun at Wizards of the Coast as a company because of their blunder with uh, the OGL. But again, I can't fault the workers who are out there working on stuff like this and providing us with amazing artwork and amazing books to go out and play. So to all the designers and all the artists and all the writers and all the creatives who don't have anything to do with the corporate BS that has plagued Wizards of the Coast in recent years, I support you. I think we all in the tabletop role playing community support you and hope that you can keep creating amazing products like this for many, many more years to come, because they do bring joy to the lives of millions. I'm a 43-year-old person who has been having enjoyment from Dungeons and Dragons products since I was, my early teens. So hopefully it can continue on until I'm well in the grave and beyond. Anyway, that's the news this week, everybody. Thanks for following along. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, and I'll see everybody in the next episode.